Ever feel like the world's just a little too cynical? Like everyone's looking out for number one, and kindness is just, well, it's a lost art? What if I told you about a young boy from a family barely scraping by who stumbles upon a wallet absolutely stuffed with cash, more money than he's ever dreamed of seeing? He could use it, honestly, to change his family's life for a year, maybe even more. But what he decides to do next, it doesn't just change his life. It sets off a chain reaction so incredible, so heartwarming, you might not believe it. This isn't just a story. It's a testament to what happens when one simple act of honesty echoes through an entire community. 12-year-old Mateo Sanchez's new struggle. Every single morning, he'd wake up in their tiny, one-room shack on the wrong side of Las Cruces, New Mexico. You know the kind of place. A tin roof that rattled like a drum solo every time the desert wind decided to kick up, and cracked adobe walls whose only decoration was a faded, slightly curled photograph of his dad. 2 years gone now, but his smile still seemed to watch over them. Mateo's mom, a woman whose hands were perpetually chapped from detergent, worked double shifts at the laundromat, scrubbing and folding, trying to make ends meet. But rent prices? They just seemed to climb faster than her paycheck ever could. Dinner, more often than not, was a single pot of pinto beans, stretched with extra water, sometimes so thin you could practically see through it. Mateo's clothes? Oh, they were the classic hand-me-downs, usually smelling faintly of mothballs from the church donation bin. His sneakers, bless their worn-out hearts, had soles that flapped like sad little wings with every step he took. Despite all that, this kid, Mateo, he had a smile for every customer who walked into the laundromat. He'd offer to carry heavy baskets, fold sheets just so, all in the hopes of earning a quarter tip. A quarter. He knew, deep down in his bones, that every single penny counted for his family. He often found himself daydreaming, just for a moment, about a world where his mom didn't look so tired, where his little sister Sophia didn't have to squint to see the chalkboard at school because they couldn't afford new glasses. Life was tough, but Mateo, he was tougher. He had to be. One scorching afternoon, the kind where the asphalt shimmered with heat haze, Mateo was taking his usual shortcut. He was cutting through the alleyway behind the strip mall, a dusty, graffiti-scarred path he preferred to the main road where the older, tougher kids sometimes waited. You know, the bullies. Suddenly, something caught his eye, a dark lump bulging beside an overflowing, rusty trash can. It wasn't just trash. He paused, a flicker of curiosity overriding his usual hurry. He stooped down, his worn sneakers kicking up a puff of dust. There it was, a worn brown leather wallet, thick as a paperback novel, lying half buried in the dirt. His heart gave a little jolt. He picked it up, the leather warm from the sun. The zipper, half open already, seemed to beckon him. And what he saw inside, it made his breath catch. A stack of crisp $100 bills. Not just a few, but a significant wad. His mind raced. This was more cash than his family had seen in an entire year. Maybe even 2. His heart wasn't just thundering now. It was practically trying to escape his chest. He looked around, a quick, almost panicked glance left, then right, and back toward the street. Nothing, no one in sight. For a moment, the entire world seemed to go quiet, the usual distant hum of traffic fading into nothingness. The only sound was the frantic beat of his own heart. A whisper of temptation slithered into his mind. He could just slide the money into his pocket, walk away. No one would ever know. Think of what this could mean. Mom could finally fix the ancient, sputtering car that had been sitting on cinder blocks for months. His little sister, Sophia, could finally get those new glasses she desperately needed. They could eat meat again, not just beans. Maybe even, dare he dream it, buy a brand new pair of sneakers for himself, ones that didn't flap. The possibilities, the sheer, intoxicating relief of it all, swirled in his head. It was a powerful, almost overwhelming moment. Mateo's fingers, still trembling slightly, carefully thumbed through the wallet. He wasn't just looking at the money anymore. He was searching for something else, anything that would tell him who this belonged to. An ID, maybe? Behind a cracked, slightly blurry driver's license photo, he finally found it. A business card. Dr. Lucas Grant, Pediatric Oncology, Children's Hospital, Pediatric Oncology. The words echoed in his young mind, a cold, clinical term he didn't fully understand, but knew sounded serious. Tucked right beside that card, in a small, almost hidden slot, was a tiny, faded pink photo. It showed a bald child, a little girl, wearing a hospital bracelet. But despite everything, she had this hopeful, almost defiant grin on her face. And on the back of the photo, in slightly smudged blue ink, was a message, written in a child's uncertain hand. Daddy, come home soon. Love, Ava. Mateo's stomach knotted instantly. The image of the little girl, bald and brave, hit him hard. He remembered the nights his own mom had cried, quiet sobs, because she couldn't afford his sister's medicine, the worry etched deep into her face. He remembered his own dad, his strong, kind dad, saying, Mateo, mio, we never keep what isn't ours. Honesty, it's all we have. Those words, his father's voice, clear as day in his memory, cut through the temptation, through the desperate need. He looked at Ava's picture again, her innocent, hopeful grin. A quiet whisper escaped his lips, barely audible even to himself. Sorry, Ava. With a resolve that settled deep in his small chest, he zipped the wallet shut. The money was still there, but now it felt less like a solution to his problems, and more like a heavy burden he needed to shed. He turned not towards home, but towards the distant, imposing silhouette of the Children's Hospital, 16 long blocks away. Every step was a commitment, a conscious choice against his own family's immediate needs, a silent promise to a little girl he'd never met. The sun beat down, but now a different kind of warmth, a quiet sense of purpose, began to spread through him. 16 blocks, under the relentless New Mexico sun, felt like a marathon. Mateo's sneakers, with their flapping soles, scuffed against the pavement. When he finally reached the towering, modern structure of the Children's Hospital, he felt a mix of exhaustion and a strange, nervous determination. Inside, the cool air conditioning was a relief, but the atmosphere felt heavy. At the information desk, a kind-faced volunteer, her smile a little weary, pointed him towards the third-floor oncology wing. As he walked down the brightly lit, yet strangely hushed corridors, the smell of disinfectant hung heavy in the air, a scent that, to Mateo, now seemed synonymous with fear, with illness, with things he didn't fully understand, but knew were serious. He found room 318. Outside it, hunched over a clipboard, was a man who had to be Dr. Grant. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes bloodshot, framed by deep worry lines. He looked utterly drained, as if he'd been fighting a war and was losing. Mateo, summoning every ounce of his courage, gently tapped the doctor's arm. Doctor. Grant turned, his expression initially annoyed, a tight, weary frown on his face. He probably expected another nurse, another clipboard needing a signature, another piece of bad news. Instead, Mateo held out the worn brown leather wallet. I think you dropped this, sir. The words, small but clear, hung in the air. Doctor. Grant's face underwent a remarkable transformation. First, a flash of utter surprise, then a wave of profound relief washed over him, softening the hard edges of his worry. But then, something deeper, something intensely emotional, settled in his eyes. He took the wallet, his hands still shaking slightly, and opened it. Everything was there. The stack of crisp $100 bills, the very money, Mateo would later learn, that was earmarked for a crucial, experimental treatment for his daughter. His credit cards, his ID, and yes, Ava's tiny pink photograph, still tucked safely in its slot. Without a word, Dr. Grant knelt down, right there in the busy hospital corridor, gripping Mateo's small shoulders. His voice, when it came, was thick with emotion, barely a whisper. "Kid," he choked out, his eyes glistening, "you just saved my daughter's life. You really did. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the hope, the chance, the sheer, unimaginable relief that flooded him in that moment." Dr. Grant, still reeling from the shock and immense gratitude, insisted on giving Mateo a reward. He pulled out a few bills, perhaps $100, maybe $200, from the recovered wallet. But Mateo, with a shake of his head that surprised even himself, politely refused. "My mom always says, sir," he explained, his voice quiet but firm, "we don't sell honesty. It's just what you do." The doctor's eyes, already glistening, seemed to well up even more. He knew, instinctively, that this wasn't just a boy returning a wallet. This was a lesson in integrity. "Instead of money, doctor." Grant pulled out another business card, one of his own, and scribbled a private number on the back. "Please," he urged, his voice earnest, "if your family ever needs anything at all, anything, you call me. Promise." Mateo, feeling a little awkward but touched, pocketed the card. He didn't mention, of course, that his family already needed everything. He just smiled, a small, genuine smile. As he walked home, the setting sun casting long shadows, he felt lighter than he had in months. The fridge back home was still empty, yes, but something inside him felt full. What Mateo didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have imagined, was that a kind-hearted nurse had overheard the entire exchange. Struck by the raw honesty and the doctor's profound gratitude, she couldn't keep it to herself. She quickly posted the story on the hospital's internal chat, a simple message about a boy, a wallet, and an act of pure integrity. Within minutes, that message went viral, not on social media, but within the close-knit hospital community. Doctors, nurses, technicians, administrative staff, they all started pooling money. Not just a little, but a significant amount. They were determined to send groceries, real, nourishing food, to the Sanchez shack. That night, as Mateo walked home, the first ripple of kindness was already turning into a quiet, powerful wave. Later that night, Mateo's mom finally came home, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. She carried a single, flimsy grocery bag, probably holding just enough for another meager dinner. But as she stepped onto their small, rickety porch, she froze. Her eyes widened, then filled with disbelief. The porch, usually bare, was now stacked high with boxes. Not just any boxes, but boxes overflowing with cereal, bags of fresh fruit, a gallon of milk, even a small, beautifully decorated chocolate cake with "For Mateo" scrawled lovingly in icing. Tucked among the bounty was a handwritten note from the nurses who believe in angels. Mateo's mom didn't just cry. She sobbed, tears of sheer relief and overwhelming gratitude streaming down her face. She turned to Mateo, her eyes searching his. He, in turn, hesitantly, a little shyly, told her about the wallet, about Dr. Grant, about Ava. As he finished, his mom pulled him into a hug so tight he could barely breathe. She buried her face in his hair, repeating, over and over, her voice thick with emotion, "Honesty is the best policy, Mio. Always." That night, the Sanchez family didn't just eat. They feasted. Peanut butter sandwiches never tasted so good, and every slice of that chocolate cake felt like a taste of pure joy. They sat together, not in silence, but with a quiet, profound sense of being cared for, of being seen. Despite their humble surroundings, despite the worn-out furniture and the rattling roof, they felt richer than they ever had before. It wasn't just the food. It was the unexpected, undeserved kindness that filled their tiny home, warming it from the inside out. The chain reaction had truly begun. The story, as truly good stories often do, refused to stay confined within the hospital walls or the Sanchez family's small home. The hospital's PR team, always on the lookout for a positive narrative, quickly caught wind of it. They smelled a headline, a truly heartwarming one. "Boy who has nothing returns life-saving cash." This wasn't just a feel-good piece. It was a powerful message of hope and integrity. Within hours, a local reporter, camera crew in tow, showed up at the hospital, then discreetly, respectfully, at the Sanchez's home. The segment, expertly crafted to highlight Mateo's quiet dignity and his family's resilience, aired at 6 o'clock that evening. And just like that, by 7, the story wasn't just local news. It was trending across the entire state. The phones at the news station started ringing off the hook. Viewers, moved to tears and inspired by Mateo's act, flooded the lines, asking one simple question: how can we help? Someone, somewhere, quickly set up a GoFundMe page. It was shared, liked, and reposted countless times. In the very first hour, the fund soared past $10,000. $10,000! Mateo's name, once just a whisper in a struggling family, now became a synonym for integrity, for selfless kindness, for the very best of humanity. He was no longer just a kid from the wrong side of town. He was a symbol of hope, a beacon of what's possible when good people do good things. The ripple was growing into a powerful surge, and the world was watching. 2 days later, Mom's ancient, cracked flip phone, usually reserved for calls from the laundromat manager or the occasional bill collector, rang. It was an unfamiliar number. She answered hesitantly, her voice a little tired. A calm, professional voice introduced itself as Victoria Lane, director of the Las Cruces Community Foundation. Mom's heart probably sank a little, bracing for another request for payment or a notice about something overdue. But then, Miss Lane explained. A group of local business owners, deeply moved by Mateo's story on the news, had come together. They didn't just want to help. They wanted to fundamentally change things for the Sanchez family. Their offer was almost too good to be true. They wanted to pay off all of the Sanchez family's outstanding debts. Every single one. Not only that, but they were offering to cover first and last month's rent on a safe, clean apartment. And as if that wasn't enough, they were establishing a college fund for both Mateo and his little sister, Sophia. A future, not just a temporary fix. Mom, still clutching the phone, slowly sank onto their single, rickety kitchen chair. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp and a sob. Tears, hot and fast, streamed down her face, but these weren't tears of sadness or exhaustion. These were tears of pure, unadulterated relief, of shock, of a hope she hadn't dared to dream of in years. Mateo stood beside her, watching, stunned into silence. He could see the weight lifting from his mother's shoulders, a burden she'd carried for so long it had become a part of her. The chain reaction? It wasn't just gaining momentum. It was accelerating into something truly life-altering. Within a week, the transformation was almost unbelievable. Professional movers, courtesy of the Community Foundation, carefully packed up the Sanchez family's few, cherished belongings. A worn-out couch, a small table, a handful of clothes. They carefully transported them across town, not to another shack, but to a bright, 2-bedroom apartment. It had working plumbing, for goodness sake. No more rats scurrying in the corners. No more leaky roof. It felt like stepping into a dream. Mateo and Sophia, their eyes wide with wonder and excitement, immediately claimed the bunk beds in their new room. Sophia, for the first time, had a space that was truly hers, not just a corner of the main room. Their mom, after years of sponge baths in cold water, finally soaked in a real bathtub, the warm water a luxurious balm to her aching muscles and weary spirit. It was more than just a house. It was dignity, comfort, a place to breathe. The kindness didn't stop there. A local optometrist, having seen the news, emailed the foundation, free eye exams and brand new glasses for both children. Sophia wouldn't have to squint anymore. A dentist offered complimentary cleanings and any necessary dental work. The elementary school principal called, excited to share that a retired teacher, a beloved figure in the community, had volunteered to tutor Mateo in math, his weakest subject. The world that had once slammed doors in their faces, that had forced them into corners of struggle and hardship, was now not just propping them open, but actively welcoming them in. It was a complete, breathtaking turnaround, all sparked by one honest choice. A few weeks later, Dr. Grant, with a gentle smile, invited Mateo to visit Ava at the hospital. Mateo, a little nervous but excited, agreed. He found Ava in her room, a sunny space filled with bright drawings. She was still bald, yes, but her eyes sparkled with a renewed energy, and that hopeful grin was even wider now. She held out a coloring page, a vibrant picture of a superhero, towards him. "Thank you," she said, her voice small but clear. "Thank you for bringing my daddy's money back. It really helped me." Mateo sat beside her, picking up a crayon, and began to color, feeling a profound sense of connection to this brave little girl. In that quiet moment, watching her joyful, unburdened play, he realized something powerful. Kindness. True kindness. It wasn't a one-way street. It traveled in loops. It came back around. It created more kindness. Before he left, as Ava drifted off for a nap, Mateo made a quiet, personal promise to himself. Every good thing he received, every blessing, every opportunity, he would find a way to pass along. He would pay it forward. He understood now that his single act of integrity hadn't just helped Dr. Grant and Ava. It had opened a floodgate of generosity that he now felt a responsibility to honor and continue. So, what do you think? If you still believe that honesty truly matters, and that one person's good heart can make a difference, then do us a favor and tap that like button. Seriously, it helps more people discover Mateo's incredible story. And trust me, the world needs more stories like this. Mateo's story, it wasn't just a local sensation anymore. That news clip, that powerful little segment, caught national attention. A major morning talk show, one of the biggest, flew the entire Sanchez family to New York City. Can you imagine? From a dusty shack in Las Cruces to the bustling streets of Manhattan. Mateo, a bit overwhelmed, but trying his best, wore a donated blazer that was 2 sizes too big, its sleeves dangling just a little, like the floppy ears of a nervous puppy. On live television, the hosts, their voices warm and full of admiration, handed them a giant ceremonial check. $50,000. Not for them to spend willy-nilly, but earmarked specifically for Mom's night school tuition. She dreamed of becoming an administrator, and, of course, to further bolster the kids' college funds. Social media, as you can imagine, absolutely exploded. Hashtags like #ReturnTheWallet and #MateoEffect started trending, inspiring countless conversations about integrity and compassion. But it didn't stop there. Corporations, inspired by the public outcry of support and the sheer goodness of the story, started making their own pledges of random acts of kindness. A utility company announced they were wiping away past due bills for struggling families in Las Cruces. A car dealership, touched by the family's previous struggles with transportation, gifted them a reliable, gently used SUV. A national grocery chain committed to supplying gift cards every single month for a year, ensuring the Sanchez family's pantry would never be empty again. It was as if the universe itself was responding, saying, "Yes, we see you, Mateo, and we're going to multiply your kindness." The biggest surprise, perhaps, came from the state university. In an unprecedented move, they announced the creation of the Sanchez Integrity Scholarship. This wasn't just any scholarship. It was a full ride, covering tuition, books, and living expenses for a student who demonstrated exceptional moral courage and integrity. And the inaugural recipient? None other than Mateo Sanchez himself. This meant that Mateo's college tuition, his entire higher education, was prepaid, guaranteed, the moment he graduated high school. Overnight, the kid who once worried about scrounging for lunch money, who had only ever seen a future bounded by the limits of poverty, now saw a future with no tuition-shaped walls. The weight of financial worry, a burden that had shadowed his family for generations, was completely lifted. He could dream bigger now, study harder, knowing that his honesty had paved a path not just for himself, but for future students who, like him, deserved a chance despite their circumstances. It was a tangible, lasting legacy born from a simple act. Back home in Las Cruces, life continued to transform, not just for the Sanchez family, but for the entire community. Mateo, now a local hero, still walked the same alley where he'd found the wallet. But it wasn't the same alley anymore. On the brick wall where graffiti once sprawled, there was now a fresh, vibrant mural. It depicted a giant, brown leather wallet, not lying in the dirt, but soaring, majestic, with wings. Beneath it, a powerful caption: "Honesty takes flight." Local artists, inspired by Mateo's story, had used that very wall, the one that had once hidden his incredible discovery, to create a permanent reminder. A reminder that choices echo. A reminder that one small act can inspire a movement. Tourists, hearing about the mural and the story behind it, began to seek it out, snapping selfies, and more importantly, dropping dollars into a donation box placed nearby. Those donations? They went directly to the community kitchen, feeding more families, continuing the cycle of generosity. The alley, once a symbol of neglect and hidden struggles, had become a moral mirror, reflecting the best of humanity back to everyone who passed by. The Las Cruces Community Foundation, having played such a pivotal role in the Sanchez family's transformation, didn't just stop there. They started actively tracking what happened next, curious about the broader impact of Mateo's story. And the results? They were astounding, almost unbelievable. In the 6 months following Mateo's story airing on national television, lost wallet returns in the county didn't just go up a little. They jumped a staggering 42%. People were actively seeking out owners, inspired by Mateo's example. A local food bank, struggling with volunteer numbers for years, saw triple the usual sign-ups. People wanted to give back, to be part of something bigger. A forward-thinking local bank even started a Return the Wallet savings program. This innovative initiative matched deposits for kids who completed a financial ethics workshop, directly linking honesty with financial literacy and future planning. One small decision, made by a 12-year-old boy in a moment of temptation, had not just changed his family's life. It had fundamentally begun to rewire the moral compass and generosity of an entire community. It proved that the ripple effect wasn't just a metaphor. It was a measurable, powerful force for good. Years passed. Mateo, now a young man, still carried groceries for tips at the laundromat sometimes, a humble reminder of where he came from. But now, he saved those quarters for 2 very specific goals: buying his mom a house, a real one, with a garden, and funding college for another kid who, just like he once was, couldn't afford it. He never forgot his promise to pay it forward. Dr. Grant's daughter, Ava, finished her treatment. Mateo was there in the hallway, cheering the loudest, when she rang the remission bell, a joyous sound that echoed through the hospital. His mom, having graduated night school with honors, landed an administrative job at the very hospital where Ava had been treated, a position that brought her pride and stability. And that old shack, the one with the rattling tin roof on the wrong side of town, it was eventually demolished. But in its place, a vibrant new playground was built, funded by community donations. Kids who once dodged bullies in dusty alleys now swung high on bright, donated swings, their laughter filling the air. They were unaware, completely unaware, that the very dirt beneath their sneakers once held a lost wallet, a simple object that had changed absolutely everything. So, let me ask you, honestly, what would you have done if you were Mateo? It's a tough question, isn't it? Drop your answer, your thoughts, your own experiences in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, stories that truly prove kindness still wins, then hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs a little bit of hope today. Mateo's story isn't just about a lost wallet. It's about so much more. Honesty didn't just feed his family. It fed a town's faith. It reminded everyone that even in the toughest times, integrity shines brightest. Remember this: the smallest choice, that quiet, internal decision to do the right thing, can set off the biggest wave of change. Return the wallet, tell the truth, choose kindness, because what happens next might just be the most unbelievable, most beautiful thing you'll ever witness.